Good evening, race fans, and welcome to tonight's coverage of the OLR x VSR Midweek Championship Round 3, live on TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark. You join us here in a bright and sunny Monterey County, California, sandwiched in between Monterey and Salinas. Here in a bright and sunny day for Round 3 of the championship at the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Founded in 1957 and comprised of 11 turns and 2.2 miles of FIA Grade 2, Laguna Seca offers up a challenge in the American theatre unlike any other. Unparalleled verticality available to our drivers today. In terms of its GT contributions, it sees racing from both the IMSA Sports Car Championship via the Monterey Sports Car Championship round, of which has started in 1957. And it also saw for 2 years between 2017 and 2019 the California 8 Hours under the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Up until 2019, it also saw competition from the GT World Challenge America Series, for which is the reason we have it available to us here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Otherwise sees racing in the IndyCar Series as the Grand Prix of Monterey, as well as from the Moto America Series, and also having started in 1974, one of the largest classic motorsports celebrations the world over, the Monterey Motorsports Reunion, which is regarded up there as part of the Big Three, alongside the Le Mans Classic and the Goodwood Revival, a fantastic celebration of the many decades motorsports has been around the block here in America. A brilliant circuit to be at then here as we step 1 foot ever closer to the midway of the championship. Round 3 at the moment. Next up along the way will be the season midway at Barcelona on July 15th, but reeling away from what has thus far been 2 rounds of action in the opening fortnight of the season, we find ourselves with a drastically different state of affairs heading away from the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, of which saw the introduction of the Platinum category. And having a look at the standings for that, Fake Galaxy leads over Alan Alexander in 2nd, John O'Driscoll makes 3rd, with Declan Anderson in 4th, Kieran Rodd in 5th, Lee Evans in 6th. In the gold standings, having been slimmed out since the last round, but now sees an additional member with Mr. Bernie joining the ranks there, now 4th, where we see a joint 1st up ahead for Davies and Oates. Angeletta makes 3rd, only 6 points away from that split of the lead. Looking into the silver division, finds this one here, Leroy Donald in the lead over Andres Tijavari, and get a look at the current gap between the 4 leading drivers. That is 6 points front to back between Donald and McNally. In between them, Tijavari and Crit. Right now, you could barely stick a coin between these drivers in the standings right now. They are that packed in. Rounding out the top 5, just a distance away there, 7 points off of McNally, is Robert Ogan. In 6th place, Milan Picconi. In 7th, Mattia Marignoni. A joint 8th for Purslow and Mikulas at 15 points. Giovanni Palumbo rounds out the top 10 in silver. Last but not least, though, the bronze division, where Callum Turner continues to lead over Ryan Castle. Wayne Trigg in 3rd, and on his debut to Spa last week, Connor Osborne taking a win on arrival. As we just see there, some trouble for Leroy Donald. Finds himself now in 4th with 33 points. He's 11 points up over that of Bartek Kowalik. An interesting session coming up ahead of us then. Laguna Seca, as we mentioned, a track unlike any other, and with it comes the very unique challenge of its heightened verticality, namely as we head up here just off the exit of the Rahal straight in towards the perilous drop down through what is arguably one of the most iconic sections of American racetrack, the Corkscrew, turns 7, 8, and 8A. That is going to provide a unique challenge for the drivers, especially the mid and rear engine cars, like we see here in the case of the Porsche 911 992 GT3R. It is going to be the risk of a pendulum effect down through that corner. We've seen it on many an occasion across both GT3 and GT4 racing here on TRTN. And for some of you from the OLR x VSR group, this may be your first time seeing what has been, over the course of this week, a big change for us here with our redesign of the logo and a brand new graphics package to go alongside it. Now, this will be further developed by the end of this week, so do look forward to more changes from there. Looking at the session so far, we're in the last 10 minutes of free practice, up and around the corner, 20 minutes of qualifying and 75 minutes of racing, as has been the standard over the course of the season so far. Fake Galaxy fastest for McLaren, ahead of Declan Anderson in 2nd with Porsche. Chris Davies rounds out the top 3 with McLaren, leading that gold charge after Spa. Looking back through those previous wins, for what reason that was, it was a first of the season win here for Davies in the gold division in Spa last week. Galaxy continues to dominate the platinum category. Tijavari takes his first win of the season in silver, and Osborne in bronze. Meanwhile, we saw the round before that, I should say, round 1 of the championship, saw Oates take a win in gold, McNally in silver, and Turner in bronze as we head up in towards today's session. So 4 titles on the line here for race wins tonight. And taking a look at the session, then further down the line, John O'Driscoll in 4th, Alan Alexander in 5th, and Kieran Rod in 6th. Now, this is a very poignant category of drivers. They've started dubbing themselves the back row musketeers. Now, there's 3 of them, which originally started as just Kieran Rod and John O'Driscoll, and a group we dubbed back in our time covering the VSR season. I think it was around season 10 and 11 where this caught on for us most, was the back row bandits. Now, why do we call them that? It's because they keep starting from the back of the field by their own volition. They will more than likely either set times in qualifying, then disqualify themselves. But we've seen for Alexander, he gets his teeth cut through this free practice session, then it disqualifies himself immediately. So these 3 already proving top 10 capable times in the session. In the case of 2 of them, top 5 capable times, will likely sit out this qualifying session. That leaves a huge void open for Leroy Donald. That could see him up to, at the best of times, 4th place on the run in towards qualifying today. We'll take a look at quality predictions as and when we arrive to qualifying, as we're on board here now with Ian Oates, who is very, very close to that lead in the Gold Division. Stands level with Davies at this time, as discussed in the championship standings. Before we get to the end of free practice, of which there is only just under 4 minutes left to go in, let's have a glance at the balance of performance listings. Bentley will maintain their advantage on this grid, now by even more so than what we saw last week in Spa. 30 kilos away from the Continental for the run-in towards tonight's event. And another major change we see there just after Mercedes' 7-kilo reduction is Ford on the negative end, losing weight, and get this, no engine restrictor. We've seen this in the last couple of weeks on a few different events under LFM jurisdiction for balance of performance, that Ford has seen this stark removal of what has been so far an engine restrictor upwards of 20% on the engine power, giving the Ford all the best of the chances of about 450, 440 horsepower over the 550 plus that it makes from the factory. That means Ford will be fired up for today's event. We can see right now one of the Fords on the grid, Callum Gray, in the silver division, currently in the pit lane. As Ford, in the last couple of rounds here, seemingly, bar the 53, is starting to go extinct. Further down the line, McLaren lose 6 kilos, Aston Martin lose 2, Porsche lose 1. Ferrari doesn't gain or lose anything in this round. We see here for the furthest up the order of the Ferraris, John O'Driscoll in the 420 Ferrari 296. Won't be seeing any changes under BOP tonight. We'll see up ahead, though, BMW will gain a single kilo, Nissan will gain 7, so that's not great news for Sean McNally, the now sole heir of the Nissan GTR, the last of the old guard from an era that lasted as far back as season 10 of VSR, into where we stand today here in the OLR x VSR Midweek Championship. They'll gain 7 kilos, but really on the short end of it will be Kieran Rod and Lee Evans, the users of the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. 13 kilos on under BOP changes tonight. You see where Rod finds himself currently standing in 7th place. Evans has yet to set a time at all. He's 17th. Up the order then, it's McLaren's game to lose today, but they will see stringent competition from the number 9, Porsche's Declan Anderson. It's a relatively quiet end towards this session. We'll see, though, down to the line as McNally from 13th across the line. He goes up to 11th place there, so steps ever closer onto the silver podium at the end of this free practice session. Coming up just around the corner then will be qualifying. We'll go to catch on board with our drivers for the track tour of the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, a track that has gone by a fair few names. Used to be the Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, then simply the Laguna Seca Raceway. You see new fastest time there, 1:22.852 by Fake Galaxy. Now, for those curious as to what Laguna Seca actually means, it's a Spanish translation of dry lake, referring to the fact that this track is built in the basin of what was once a lake many centuries ago. This dried out area now creates the perfect bowl by which to create a racing track. Now, it's precisely the thought process in the late 50s when this track broke ground and opened the same year, so it was a very quick turnaround to construct the first version of the Laguna Seca Raceway. Now, it has undergone some changes since the 50s, namely the introduction of that redesigned first sector. That came about in 1988. The part which you can see there starts with the Andretti hairpin at turn 2, loops back in on itself. Up until 1987, that area simply did not exist. It was a much longer, winding left-hander that would bring you up to where currently turn 5 sits. You can actually, and just picking back to some knowledge that we had from a few other games that we've played before, though not necessarily covered on TRTN. You can actually use that older version of Laguna Seca on, if I'm not mistaken, Forza Motorsport, which is a bit of a confusing game to have found that in, but nonetheless, you can find that older layout involved. The current circuit we know then was later iterated on in 1996, following the changes already made in 1988, which saw the redesign of the corkscrew, now a little bit shallower and a lot less sharp in terms of that run up towards turn 8. Used to be almost an acute hairpin left, so you can imagine how terrifying that would have been for the drivers if they were to compete in the GT3s of today. And so in towards qualifying, 20 minutes of qualifying underway. We can see immediate movement there from Fake Galaxy and Declan Anderson. It will be the case where Galaxy is first among the fray. We see right behind them there Leroy Donald, now leading the silver division after last round of the championship. And taking a look in towards those qualifying predictions shows an incredibly thin margin at the head of the field. Davies from Evans, and get this, by 8 thousandths. This is the closest front I believe we've ever seen in this midweek championship slot. Previously would have been the VSR GT3 championship, of which we started coverage of back in season 7. And I believe of all that time, this is the closest we've ever seen that front row be. 8 thousandths between two separate categories. Davies now in the joint lead with Ian Oates, and Lee Evans straddling towards the back end of the platinum category. This is going to be a razor-thin session ahead of us if we are to believe the data on our sheets today. So it's also worth taking note of there. We obviously have a few drivers that have already began the process of sitting this one out. So O'Driscoll is one among them, and also for that of Alan Alexander, who I believe just disqualified himself. Actually, no, it was the 420, so that was O'Driscoll. So we're still waiting on the word from Alexander, but it's more than likely a case to be the case where he will not make his way to the top 5, rather reluctantly so, given the kind of advantage he would have otherwise had in qualifying today. He's disqualified there. You see the 315 sends himself out of the session. He's adamant to start from the back of the field. So taking a look at some of those other times as well, it's worth keeping an eye here for Leroy Donald. He is looking at 4th place in the session. We've got to catch on with the leading car on the charge up towards the first lap of today's event. Going to catch on board with Fake Galaxy, 2-time platinum winner in these this season so far. Makes his way up through turn 1, up over the crest in towards turn 2 here. The Andretti hairpin, the first of our major overtaking spots, and really could be quite a crunch zone on the start of today's race. Up and around now through to turn 3. And on this section we originally mentioned there was made in 1988. You can see it keeps a lot of the same skeleton structure. Making our way up through to turn 5. Now up towards turn 6, and this is in this very sharp dip here on the inside. Very easy to get the car kicked out wide here for the run up the Rahal straight. Then in towards the corkscrew, and I think it's best to watch on board over the dashboard here. It really does give an understanding what the drivers are dropping down into. They can barely see the other side of the corner until they mount the crest. By that point, they need to pray they've got positioning right down through the rainy curve here at turn 9, up towards turn 10. It's going to shoot the car right back in onto the right-hand side there. Very sharp turnaround from the long sweeping left-hander at Rainey to the sharp right-hander at turn 10 through to turn 11. Sharp left-hander here, a little bit out wide for Galaxy, but otherwise looks fairly strong for the 55. Down towards the line to go to be our baseline time on today's session, 1:23.092 by Fake Galaxy. From behind him, approaching the line, was the number 9 of Declan Anderson. Then will be Leroy Donald, if memory serves rightly, and Donald fastest. It is worth noting as well for Leroy Donald, I believe the last hour research proved that this one, if I'm not mistaken, this may be a home race for him. I'm not 100% on that one because he's, I believe, since the time last having investigated this, removed his declared nationality from SimGrid. I believe this was information we had as far back of our coverage of things as MSC's GT3 Championship, of which Donald also competed in. At that time was with Ferrari, and he was quite the interesting one to watch over the course of that event because he was caught up in what I can only describe to you as the worst incident we've ever seen here on Laguna Seca. It was on the run up towards Corkscrew. The car, I could only describe, turned into a missile on the run up towards turn 7, 8, and 8A. Meanwhile, then McNally 4th, Ogan 5th, Palumbo in 6th, nearest to the line. was the 870 to start another flyer. Then it'll be the number 77. That's Ryan Castle now down to the line here from the bronze. Only 3 bronze cards in today's event. There's the first of the times from them. The 77 now 7th in the session. Number 28 nearest. Here comes Davies. Joint lead of the gold division after last round. And a win in category to boot as well. 4th place in today's session behind Anderson, Donald and Galaxy, of which we now see that order solidified by Galaxy back up at the head of the field. Leroy Donald down to 2nd, Anderson in 3rd. Porsche looking very strong here. Of course, Porsche have been an emblematic face of American motorsports for the last couple of decades, especially at a track like Laguna Seca, where they've powerhoused their way through the IMSA Sports Car Championship in both GTD and GTP. Porsche's American image, still one that survives to this day. In fact, now it would be the IMSA Sports Car Championship and races like the Monterey Sports Car Championship round where we'll be able to see the latest of Porsche's developments in endurance car racing, because it's the only series now to continuously run the Porsche 963 after they withdrew from the World Endurance Championship. Across the line, Kieran Rodd to 3rd. Now, this is a curiosity because one must consider, where does his allegiance stand to the rest of his fellow back row bandits? Would it be a case where he's going to sign himself back in to the back row of the field, or could we be seeing a change of heart? We were told that their ranks were only continuing to grow. There was an expected 4th member to join today, but G-Portal has, for whatever reason, barred them of entry. So we'll have to wait until we visit Barcelona, the home of the former Spanish Grand Prix, now the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix next week at the season midway. Here for our one and only stop in the United States. What better place could we go with this grid than Laguna Seca? This is going to be a very exciting round to catch on with over the course of the rest of the 14 minutes that comprise quali here, and the 75 minutes. It's an hour and a quarter of racing to follow. Leroy Donald maintains that 2nd place spot at the moment. We were following here with Kieran Rodd. He's 4th in the session, 196 across the line a moment ago, and I believe, yes, that was for Mr. Burney, recently into that scoring position in the gold division, having brought their numbers up from 3 to 4 in the last round just gone. We'll continue to try and raise that bar. We see level on time here. Rod and Oates down to the 1,000th, so they'd need tens of thousandths of a second to start drawing differences there. The same kind of timing equipment you'd need, funnily enough, in IndyCar, of which also races here. Nearest to the line, I believe, here is the number 55. No, it is not the 55. The 870 with them, followed by the 53 there. So that's who we were thinking of. Letitia Bari in grey across the line there, 15th and 16th. Nearest to the line is the number 55, the one we mistook him for a moment ago. That being Fake Galaxy. His own time to beat here, 122.025. Can he find his way into the 121s? Across the line he goes, and not on this lap at the moment, but we're only just scratching the surface. Still an extra half of the session to go before we're done here in qualifying at Laguna Seca. Evans across the line stays in 8th place. Nearest to the line is the 111. So approaching the line there was Callum Turner. Now finds himself in Division 2nd, with Connor Osborne Division 3rd for the bronze drivers at the moment. It's all McLarens down in bronze, the last of the surviving trio. Castle still leads that charge by division. The 61's down towards the line. Now we're told by some of the representatives of the back row bandits that this is a more of a fuel test for the 61 over the course of this event. Of course, with an hour and 15 minutes and the addition there of a mandatory pit stop in play, he's testing how much fuel in the car dare I run for that opening stint to get the most out of the pit stop. We see now back into the pit lane, so very likely the case now where he's got all the necessary data he needs. We'll see what he chooses to do later on. Down to the line goes Andres Tijavari. See in chat at the moment, joining us there, Euro Titans is Brooklyn Donkin. If you caught on with us earlier this week, you would have seen Donkin to the checkered flag, first among the fray. Over on Fats GT at the circuit, Paul Ricard, the first wet race of the season, gave the number 17 quite a lot to talk about there after a brilliant performance with Ford. Tijavari across the line to 16th. Number 44, Evans, nearest. From behind him, you can see that of Declan Anderson. Following from behind them is Callum Turner. Down to the line then goes Lee Evans, one of 2 Lamborghinis in this session. They're going to be facing the real hard end of it under BOP today, so nothing found there. As for the number 9 across the line, stays where he is in 3rd. Then the number 92 and 111 from behind. Then following is the number 96. That's Robert Ogan. Now he stands on the division podium right now. It's a Porsche 1.3 in silver. And his main target right now stands, as it would appear, 340 thousandths of a second away. That's Sean McNally in the number 4 Nissan. He's 9th place at the moment, so making his way down to the line. He's only 2 thousandths away from Evans. Can he find his way ahead of a driver he formerly shared a car with in the Nissan lineup over on the VSR GT3 Championship a few seasons ago? As it would stand, no. Not on that lap, at least, but still plenty of time. 10 minutes coming up on left to go in the session. We're nearly halfway through on qualifying. Nearest to the line is once again Andres Tishavari. Behind him is Callum Gray. So down to the line there from Tishavari. Now up to 15th ahead of Connor Osborne. And following him there, Callum Gray now goes to 16th. We are told as well Kieran Rodd is still out on track here. So he's come back out after that brief visit to the pit lane. Down through the corkscrew. Has his sights possibly set on a charge up to 4th place. His fate on this grid still remains, relatively speaking, uncertain, because right now he'd need, and we see there with the introduction of Lee Evans, he now has found himself down a position to the 3rd row of the grid, or the back end of the 3rd row more relevantly, as his fellow Lamborghini goes to the top 5. Number 61 across the line a moment ago there, so Rod onto another flyer. Behind him was the 247. That was Ben Dexter, currently 18 for the session. Number 14 across the line. Just stray of half a second away from Fate Galaxy at the moment for Leroy Donald. With his recent successes now seeing him at the height of a razor-thin silver division top 4. He looks to keep that ball rolling, but we have seen many an occasion in many different series. On many days like these, we find a driver separated from the rest of his category, left to fight among the top 2 or top categories in some divisions. Often has not been the most wonderful of days. I mean, just take a look in last night on our coverage of the Red Bull Ring round of the Competizione Performance, the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. Very similar story for that of Thomas Romano. The AM category driver found himself very far up the order, separate from his fellow AMs, up in the ground of semi-pros and pros for the start of the race, and it just all came by the wayside. He was able to turn that one around into a podium, albeit at the end of last night's round, but this is going to be the same kind of curse afflicted to Leroy Donald. He'll be looking to keep his head on a swivel for that race start. He does not want to start falling down positions with what is an extra aggressive crowd from Gold and Platinum. We've seen these drivers go hell for leather in races gone by, whether it's through VSR or this one thus far, and only 2 rounds in on the OLR X VSR Midweek Championship. 8 minutes left to go. Evans 4th, Davies now 5th, Rod 6th. So nearest to the line will be the number 55. Now, it has been the question prevailing over this quali session for the longest time now. Can Fate Galaxy break in to the 121s? He is 25 thousandths away from sitting dead on a 122. He is 26 thousandths away from a 121. Across the line he go. Can't find it there, but he still has plenty of time. Functionally speaking here, he's got the grounds for about 5 or 6 more laps, if the fuel he's got in the car there under quali trim allows for it. Across the line a moment ago went the 53. Callum Gray stays in 16th at the moment. And you'd think with their lack of a restrictor and the fact that Ford does seem to be on the greater end of things under BOP today, losing weight over their contemporaries, normally under a jurisdiction that will see them get the worst of treatment, you'd think the engine would be able to give him a little bit more here, but Gray, as it stands, then lags behind the top 15. Division-wise, he's looking right now at about 7th place. Number 61 across the line a moment ago, Kieran Rodd, still 6th place here as it would stand. Was recently intercepted for that top 5 spot by Lee Evans. Now his nearest target is Chris Davies. Down to the line comes the number 4 car. That would be for Sean McNally. So right now, he's just relegated of that division podium in the silver division. McNally reluctantly stuck in place. Not a great deal he can do from where he stands right now, as it looks to be the case. He needs roughly here the ballpark of about 168 thousandths thereabouts to go up and ahead over Matt Critt on that division podium for what is currently in the silvers, a Porsche 123. We are really seeing the strongest of performances from Porsche in today's round. This is an area they have chosen as their stomping ground over the last couple of years through the IMSA Sports Car Championship. In fact, it's been the Porsche 911 to be one of the most easily recognizable GTs in American endurance racing of the last 20 to 30 years. Across the line there goes Critt, stays where he is for the time being. Now, one very curious story is that of Ryan Castle in that bronze division at the moment. Of course, to bring back up those bronze standings for Castle, he did recently find himself losing that lead off to Callum Turner. So these two stand separate right now by 25 points in the championship. Castle looks very clearly the faster of the three. Nearest bronze driver to him being his championship rival Callum Turner stands, as it looks there, just about 903 thousandths away. So nearly a full second he's got there over his contemporaries. It does look fairly clear cut for Castle, but again, it's the curse of the isolated category that may strike him once more. But he's swamped it amongst the what are technically on paper higher caliber silver drivers. They're not going to be taking it easy on him because they're going to be viewing him, as is the same story for Donald up in the land of gold and platinum, they're going to be viewing him as somewhat of an obstacle. So they're burdened by underestimating. The rest of the field isn't going to see these drivers on that race start as someone they have to fight with, just someone they have to get around in some cases. There's almost this, and without trying to sound horrible to the drivers, there's almost this willing arrogance around the lower divisions. It happens all the time in endurance racing between, say, for the example, the prototypes and the GT3s. They're off in their own different world, and it's the same story here for silver, bronze, gold, and platinum. They're all fighting different battles. They're all going to be viewing each other, especially if they're of a lower division. They're going to be viewing them as obstacles more so than anything. But I think what we're seeing right now with Castle and Donald, these are legitimate threats to control in that top 10. These are two drivers punching well above their weight, going toe-to-toe with higher divisions right now. If they're not in those divisions by next season, frankly, I don't know what on earth was going on to stop them. With 3 minutes left to go in the session, we see here with Brian Castle. And it's worth pointing out that he's only 48 thousandths away from Giovanni Palumbo, division second in the silvers right now today. And what would stand outright as 8th place, can Castle find his way to that 4th row being the real question? Not on that lap, but he's still very close. It's worth also pointing out, looking just up ahead of Palumbo, Palumbo himself only 12 thousandths away from Ian Oates. So from Castle's point of view, he only needs about 6 hundredths here to get 2 positions for the price of 1. To go from 9th, where he stands at the moment, to 7th, just on the start of that 4th row. A very powerful position, because right now he heads up that 5th row. He'll be stuck in behind Palumbo and Oates otherwise, as well as the rest of that top 10. The 14 nearest, and there was a recent shot of improvement there from 545 thousandths, now 417 thousandths away. Leroy Donald on the procession to climb closer to Fate Galaxy's leading time, but again, he's yet to break into that 121. That's been a glass ceiling so far. Will it be shattered on this lap across the line? Yes, it will. 121.860 from the Austrian talent. The number 55 raises the bar in quali with 2 minutes left to go. He's back into the paddock. There's not the likely chances he'll be coming back out. That's right about where the limit sits then for Galaxy. 121.860, and having a glance back in towards those qualifying predictions as the session continues here, 1.5 minutes left to go. That shatters any previous record by nearly a full second. In fact, it is a second, and actually not a second, sorry, it is 900 and... looking here, trying to get the rough maths involved. 903 thousandths. Good Lord. What on earth have they been feeding this one? Or 997 thousandths, I should say. Oh, Fake Galaxy certainly had his Weetabix. 1 minute left to go. 14 nearest to the line, so we saw recent bout of improvement there from Leroy Donald, still leading head and shoulders in the silver category, and what was right now a very, very close tie between 4 drivers, with Donald at the head of it. Tishavari, Critton, McNally also in consideration there front to back by 6 points in the first 2 rows of the standings. He is going to be looking to carve that line ahead. Number 196 is nearest. So here comes Mr. Bernie. Recently joined the ranks then of the gold standings. He's got quite some ground to cover since Spa. 18 points in the last round across the line here. Goes up and ahead of Davies, and if I'm not mistaken, having a quick glance across, that is, as a matter of fact, the gold division pole position in the last, and try saying that 5 times fast, in the last 10 seconds. That is quite the turnaround indeed then for Mr. Bernie. Better late than never has been the case so far before the end of the first half of the championship. As Davies, currently out on track here, will be seeing the end of his qualifying session, so this has to be the assurances of a return to 5th place if he wants to claim upon that pole position in the golds division. Down to the line goes Chris Davies. And across the line, doesn't find himself ahead of Bernie, so Bernie may very well have this one here. The only other driver that could stand in his way right now is some 6/10 behind nearly, that being Ian Oates, but it is worth noting Oates is on the exit of the rainy curve. Leroy Donald across the line stays in second, so it seems all but assured here for Fake Galaxy's pole position control outright and in platinum. With Leroy Donald on silver division pole, we just saw there the start of that gold division pole position. Again, say that 5 times fast. Oates across the line stays where he is, so that's reinforced there for Mr. Bernie. He need not try any harder for this one. The 196 on division pole here in Laguna Seca. A very exciting turn for the 196 McLaren. The bronze division pole going to Ryan Castle, 9th place. So that's all 4 division pole sitters inside the top 10. This is going to be a very exciting day ahead of us then. Some 20 cars in attendance, 10 on either side of which for the start of round 3 of the OLR x VSR Midweek Championship. We see there the back row bandits. Well, they have now dubbed themselves the back row musketeers. Not got a very good ring to it if you ask me, but you know who's arguing is Rod, Alexander and O'Driscoll, 18th through 20th at the end of that grid. But your 4 pole sitters by division: Fake Galaxy, Leroy Donald, Mr. Bernie and Ryan Castle. Getting a look then on towards that grid in a moment's time. No news to cover so far, as really the only major hubbub surrounding the automotive and motorsports world has been the run-up towards the Goodwood Festival of Speed. We're starting to get some confirmation through from a fair few manufacturers. Aston Martin will be present with their Valkyries and their current Gen Formula 1 car. Formula E is set to debut their Gen 4 car, which has already undergone testing in a few different destinations, but will be making its British debut at Goodwood's Hill Climb later on this, I believe this week coming actually, as it stands to be the case. Red Bull Racing will be arriving with plenty of their heritage and modern cars, as well as a look at the production grade RB17, a car that was showed off under wraps to private screenings, ones that we were actually able to catch ourselves here on TRTN when we were present at the Goodwood Festival of Speed back in 2024. In fact, no, it might have been 2025 actually when that was. But we were able to get a look at it ourselves, and it was quite the thing to behold. Now it has finally got up to production grade. That was a prototype we saw in the last couple of Festival of Speeds, and now they'll be showing off to the world what they're capable of. That car has been kept under lock and key for quite some time. Red Bull looking to make the fastest car you can buy on a racetrack. Aston Martin looks to be racing them to that post as well with their currently unnamed car, one that fans have called the Batmobile, but more on that at a later time. 3 minutes left to go before the start of round 3 of the championships formation lap here in Laguna Seca, and it's Fake Galaxy on overall pole position. He also holds pole for the platinum drivers. The number 55 heads up the field right alongside him. The new silver division leader, Leroy Donald, on division pole for the silvers. He starts up in second place. Behind him, Declan Anderson in third. Lee Evans in a strong 4th place spot. Mr. Bernie heads up the gold field there. Gold pole position from 5th place overall on track. Behind him then, his fellow gold driver, Chris Davies, having recently taken a joint lead of the gold division over the car that starts right in behind him there. That's all 3 of our participating gold drivers on the same spot on the track. It's right behind him, Ian Oates in 7th, Giovanni Palumbo in 8th. Ryan Castle heads up the bronze field in a 9th place overall, with Matt Critt rounding out the top 10. Callum Gray in 11th, with Sean McNally in 12th. Robert Ogan in 13th. Callum Turner in 14th. And Andres Tishavari in 15th. Connor Osborne in 16th place ahead of Ben Dexter in 17th. And then the back row bandits, Kieran Rodd, Alan Alexander, and John O'Driscoll, 18th, 19th, and 20th. And I think for their sake as well, a 20-car grid is right about the Goldilocks zone here for the amount of cars that we'd want to see at Laguna Seca. It is a very small track, among the smallest available to us in the American assortment. The other two destinations, of the three, I should say, that we could have visited in the American slot for this championship would have otherwise been Indianapolis with their road course that was used in GT World Challenge America, as well as many other series. That particular configuration, though, from GT World Challenge America, the other options would have been the Circuit of the Americas, and then would have been Watkins Glen International, which in the next couple of weeks we will be seeing racing from, and a few other series we're covering here on TRTN. More to follow, though, later down the line. As we wait now, a minute left to go. If you're joining us for action later this week, Saturday has 2 races coming up. The third and penultimate round of the Ginetta Summer Challenge by HCCL. We're live from Donington Park at 2 p.m. BST. And then after that, 7 p.m. BST for the next round of the Continental Racing League Season 2. If you're joining us on Sunday, 6:30 p.m. BST, Season 6, Round 8 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. We're live from Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia at the Mount Panorama Circuit. 30-second warning right about now, so we're going to go and catch on board with Galaxy. 30 seconds. Heading up the field, Fate Galaxy looking to go for a hat-trick of victories to kick the season off here. Just one more week away from the midway at round 4 of 8. Here on round 3, he will spearhead the charge once more. Leroy Donald hunting for glory once again here. Holds a very narrow lead, 2 points to the nearest car in silver, but he finds himself head and shoulders above the competition in the silver division. But again, we do find ourselves with the story of the stranded driver, because he is a far cry away from the rest of that field. We see starting from the pit lane will be Connor Osborne, as we're just given confirmation of it there. Pulling away is Fate Galaxy. So as we mentioned, Donald is going to be surrounded on all sides here by drivers who are not going to be seeing him as part of their own fight. They're going to be seeing him as a driver to immediately get up and around with. So there is going to be, rather unintentionally, a case where he's going to be receiving, I would say, a lot more the blunt treatment from his contemporaries here in the gold and platinum divisions. I think being brandished as a silver has not done him any favors, because he has put on what is very easily platinum tier performance in Laguna Seca so far. He will have to prove himself around these drivers, but he's already proven himself to us over the course of that spectacular qualifying session. Joining us in chat there as well, we can see that is, yes, that would be Christian LeBay from the Competizione Performance League. We saw him fight eagerly alongside David Tanguay in last night's event at the Red Bull Ring. Narrowly missed out on another victory. It was Tanguay to take his second of the season in a rainy Red Bull Ring. All of these events over the course of this week will be available later on this week to find on the TRTN YouTube channel. Otherwise, you can catch them here for a few days on the TRTN Twitch channel before they're added over to YouTube. Through turn 6, you can see that dip on the inside is so easy for the drivers to get a little too greedy and hook it to the inside, and it will kick the rear axle out backwards if they don't behave themselves. So on the run up the Rahal straight, up over into this crest here at turn 7, through to turn 8, then 8A, and again it's with that right side curve, that whole right end of the track through turn 8A. You will not be able to see it as you round turn 8 itself, as it's just over that crest. So positioning is absolutely paramount for the run down through the corkscrew. Then through the rainy curve. And this is a deceptively dangerous area of the track as well. We've seen many drivers get one tire up over the gravel on the right-hand side, and it will violently spin you out if you let it. The drivers will have to be playing things very cautiously here. Very few, if any, runoffs that will allow the driver to keep their speed. In terms of overtaking spots, of course, keep an eye out for the Andretti hairpin, as well as the run up through turns 5 and 6, down through the corkscrew, and down here at turns 10 and 11. And right on cue then, as we roll down towards the line, 1 hour and 15 minutes of racing to follow, 75 minutes in total. As we roll down towards the line, 20 cars in attendance, 19 on track, 1 from the pit lane here at Laguna Seca. 10 on one side, 9 on the other. Making our way down to the line for round 3 of the OLR VSR Midweek Championship. We're green and racing here in Monterey. And a great start from that front row right off the bat. We see right along with them there, Declan Anderson peeling up and away from the 196 of Mr. Bernie. And I believe, has that been a case there? We saw a bit of a gap forming up from that second and third row. Have we seen a driver possibly drop away? No, being the case. The number 17 was the only driver to have fallen into that pit lane. So a great start from Galaxy. Leroy Donald stays with by half a second. A stop go 30 for Connor Osborne as he leaves the pit lane. You can see from the Porsche's point of view, actually looking in here with a car just behind them. This is Mr. Bernie in the 196, still spearheading that charge in gold. Up in front of him, Anderson and Donald already getting to arms there over control of second place. Heading up through to turn 5, you can see that Anderson trying to poke his nose out through that corner, trying to get the inside line off of Donald, but Donald holding his ground for the run into turn 6 and up the Rahal straight. A great start from the front. In behind them there, you can see Ryan Castle making up solid ground here. He's already up to 7th place. You can see behind him it's been a disastrous start for Chris Davies out from the Andretti. We see there even more troubles for Davies behind as he did get, I believe, rear-ended there by Callum Gray in the silver number 53. It's worth pointing out for Gray as well what a start it's been for him up and ahead of Giovanni Palumbo. Now division 2nd in the silvers. Further behind, we see Matt Critt just outside of the podium, and there we see, actually, Matt Critt is quite a fair distance down. You can see damage on that rear end, so I think he may have been turned around. We see Kieran Rods being intercepted there by Andres Tishavari. Up in front of them is Giovanni Palumbo in the number 88 on that silver division podium. Looking further up the order to see Evans now fighting with Oates. These two having shared a tremendous rivalry in times gone by. We are starting to get an understanding as to what happened further down the line there. I believe it was for Matt Critt and Callum Turner. So actually played quite wonderfully for Ryan Castle, with one of his bronze contemporaries having started from the pits, already has a stop go, the other one in trouble as well. We see O'Driscoll and Rod as well as Alexander. These are the 3 back rows on their way up towards the top 10 here. Their first target will be Andres Tishavari, so he's being ganged up on here by these 3. Getting up past him goes the 420. Then the 61 tries to sneak away up there on the run uphill. The Ferrari now ahead. The Lamborghini in behind. The Porsche still trying to hold his ground through to turn 6 there. Hugs the outside. The 61 still gunning for it. He'll be looking for the inside for the run up towards the corkscrew, but he has to keep mindful here of the 315. We see up in front Callum Gray forced to cut the inside there. Couldn't see it coming off the exit of turn 8. Alan Alexander, as it would appear to be the case then, falls in behind, but now alongside here Andres Tishavari. So Kieran Rod having got up and ahead. Tishavari now swamped in by both Alexander and, as it would stand there behind him, Robert Ogan. Looking up through that order though, just getting a quick glance in on some more fighting here. A 3, perhaps even 4-way split, perhaps even 5-way actually, when one considers Chris Davies at the back of it there. Control for 3rd place, actually 4th, my mistake there, led by Mr. Bernie. Ian Oates in behind, Lee Evans, then Ryan Castle, then Chris Davies. This is a war across 3 categories, platinum, gold and bronze, as it would happen in the absence of silver. You see here Ryan Castle got a little squirrely off the exit of turn 3, then through to turn 4. That opened the door up just long enough for Chris Davies to walk on by into 7th place. As we head up through to turn 5, we see here for Lee Evans dropping distance away from Ian Oates, who now sets his sights firmly on a lead in gold, fighting with Mr. Bernie. This is quite spectacular stuff to see here from the number 6. Heading up to the corkscrew. We'll go to catch on board with him in a moment's time. Having just a quick glance as they round through the corkscrew. Some other fighting. You can see a real squeeze of cars here. Palumbo, O'Driscoll, Gray and Rod. You can see that Rod went all the way for the inside and then on the outside of the second part and then bumps into Callum Gray. Into the wall, goes to 53. Careens back into the track, collects that of Sean McNally. That was horror for them at this time. You can see now back into the pit lane goes Callum Gray. He's out of this race. Shoulder checked by the number 61 on the run in towards the rainy curve. Slams the concrete wall there, bounces back in, slams into the Nissan of Sean McNally, then bounced back onto the gravel. That is a frankly brutal ending for Callum Gray's race today. 1 hour and 10 minutes left to go then here in Laguna Seca. We'll go and leave you on board with Ian Oates. We'll be back to you in just a moment's time. We just had to scramble back to it there. We just saw from Ian Oates, just as we put him on break, having slid out wide from the rainy curve, falls in behind Lee Evans, now out of the top 5. Moreover, sundered from his chances to fight with that of Mr. Bernie for the gold division lead here past the first 5 minutes of racing. Taking a look in there, we also find recent troubles here for Palumbo, now having fallen all the way in behind all 3 members of the back row bandits. Even further down the line, though, as he finds himself dropping from the top 15 after recent trouble. You see at this time then, there's all 3 of your back row bandits. These 3 have been among the most iconic cars on track. We see there, all big trouble for Alexander. Very, very big slide for him there, but he holds his ground. There is very, very definable technique between these 3 drivers. I think if they weren't playing around so much at the back of the field, they could 100% challenge for championships in their own respective championships, that many of which we see them in. We see in the case of both Alexander and O'Driscoll was the NLRL Sunday League not too long ago, where much of the same occurred. Looking back up the order here to see Evans v Bernie in progress. Further up the order, it's a battle on the 2 Porsches at the head of the field here. Leroy Donald versus Declan Anderson. As we teeter in towards the first 10 minutes of racing, many bouts of action then here at Laguna Seca. Taking a look in to see, this is the fight on the Silver Division podium right now. Robert Ogan versus Andres Tishavari. It is still a Porsche 1-2-3. As it stands to be the case, it's a Porsche 1-2-3-4 for the Silvers, with Matt Critt 14th overall, but Division 4th right now. Behind, you can see Sean McNally could be intercepted here by Giovanni Palumbo to bring it to a Porsche 1-2-3-4 and 5. What is clear domination of the Silver Division by Porsche in today's round. The number 4, we saw him, albeit not by his own volition, collide with Callum Gray, who was careening across track there with that rejoin. You see then with the number 4 still holding off Palumbo during this time. Let's get a catch on board quickly here with Donald v Anderson. As we cut away here from what was the fighting for Ian Oates. Taking a look up the order, we do just note there was a big wad of dust kicked up through turn 4. We see that's the Bernie v Evans fight we've been waiting on for this time. Now we see as well, this is the trio still making their way down through to the rainy curve. It does make you wonder as well, with 2 of the 3 members being members of Euro Titans, why has there not been the push to recruit the 3rd in, get John O'Driscoll on the team? Because we've not heard anything through the grapevine on developments of the following. We see here back on board with Anderson versus Donald. This is going to be a rather curious one to watch on with. Making our way up through to turn 4. What we're seeing right now in front of us, the fight for 2nd place. These 2 Porsches in a world of their own, still separate from the leading McLaren now by upwards of 6.5 seconds. As Fate Galaxy continues to clear house past the first 10 minutes of racing here in Laguna Seca, up through to turn 6, now on the Rahal Straight, on the run towards the corkscrew. Anderson, you can see there, nosing his way to the inside. He's still trying to pick out a line here to by which best attack the number 14 in front. Round through the rainy curve now to turn 10. We do note there has been yellow flags out, number 88 in trouble. As we quickly cut away from these 2 just to see there Giovanni Palumbo in continued strife as he now drops position off to Ben Dexter. Now down at 18th place there in the number 88 Porsche. Fortunately, in that case, though, they are back into green flag conditions, so back onto the battle of 2nd here with Anderson's point of view. He was slower in the last lap by about 0.3 of a second, so he's got to think of something and think of it fast here. With a single mandatory pit stop in effect, the drivers will still be looking to split this one down the middle at around the 37.5-minute mark. Out through turn 4 once again. You can just see that Donald is settling in very nicely. He was expecting today to be a case where the categories around him would try to push him around on track, so he's done the best he can to carve out a very distinct part of this grid. The only car capable of giving him any grief right now is the one hovering around his rearview mirror, that being this one here, Declan Anderson, a driver who has already been in a fair few fights on this grid. He knows what he needs to do to gain position, but right now he has met his match here. It's like two sides of the same coin between these two Porsches on the podium. But Donald, this does little to affect whether he's in front or behind Anderson, that he'll still be leading silver. But it's about the satisfaction of holding P2 to be on that higher position overall. It's a testament of his ability in that number 14 Manthey EMA Porsche. We'll catch on with these two once more. We do just quickly see the retake of position here for Palumbo v Dexter up through to turn 6. Now, it's been through turn 5 where there's been recent troubles for Palumbo. Turn 6 seems all but fine. Up towards the corkscrew we go with these two. And down on through. There is a notable build-up of cars now in the fight between Bernie and Evans. And, of course, the one we saw before was Donald v Anderson, but there's still the three-way split between the cars still carving their way up through the field. All three of them now in the top 10. So they've made up half the grid in the first 12 minutes. Leading that charge for the fight on 8th place, Alan Alexander. Up in front, you see there Ryan Castle leading the bronze division. So by way that it stands at the moment, it's still a case here. Some nearly 15 minutes into this race where the top 10 still holds all of our division leaders from all 4 categories. Seeing here with O'Driscoll, second in that pack for the fight of 8th place. Heading in towards the corkscrew. Now they're all setting their sights collectively here on that number 77 out in front. They've been roving through the grid like a pack of hungry wolves, as it would stand. They've swamped in on anyone who stood in their way at the moment. We do note yellow flags for the number 28. I believe that is Davies. Go and look in there. Trying to catch on. Yes, it was. You can see their state of disrepair. Damage on the nose of Chris Davies' McLaren. He's in 18th place here on this 19-car grid. We're already down 1 car with 1 retirement. Already there, you can see in the gravel off in the background, that was Sean McNally. Rejoining there, Davies gets up and around him through to the rainy curve, but that has been a continued upset for the Nissan of Sean McNally. First was that incident where the 53 came screaming across the track after slamming the wall. You can see him actually in there behind. That's Callum Gray. Ended up collecting himself on the nose of this Nissan here, and that set McNally down this path so far as he drops down to 18th place. Oates still a fair distance from the fight up in front. 7/10 of a second between Evans and Bernie, but 2 whole seconds between Evans and Oates. These two shared in one of the greatest rivalries we had seen in recent memory here on the midweek slot on what used to be the VSR GT3 Championship. Was their fight for the Golds Division title. These two gave us quite a lot of theatrics over the course of season 11. Number 14 in trouble. That's Leroy Donald, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we see there for the number 14, having dropped away now behind Declan Anderson. He still holds that Silver Division lead. You can see backing up onto him there in the background. This looks to build into a tremendous fight between Evans and Donald. They're around the outside there for the run through to turn 11, but falls in back behind the McLaren. Mr. Bernie still holds that Golds Division lead. Lee Evans, regardless of if he's in front or behind, won't affect that. He's a Platinum Division driver, but these two have been swamped in on this fight today. It's been fantastic viewing from the 44 and the 196. Bobbing in every now and again to see what they're getting up to. We can see right now they're at the height of it, past the first 15 minutes of today's race. Through to turn 3, still in hot pursuit. All of this right now in contention of 4th place. Now we are made aware of some other fights going on during this time. I believe the 96 facing off against the 111. So Robert Ogan v Callum Turner. That is a curious one when you consider Callum Turner started, if memory serves rightly. Oh, no, sorry, that was Connor Osborne. I was about to say, if it was a case where Callum Turner was the one starting for the pit lane, he's made his way up towards what is nearly 13th. That is not too shabby, but that is our retiree from today's session. It's been Connor Osborne. Pit lane start, then to a stop go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. It has just not gone his way today. Rather than drag things out for himself for another 75 minutes at the back of the field, he made the smart decision. Backed out of today. We'll hopefully see him again then in Barcelona next week. As we head to the midway, in the background there, that was Andres Tishavari. Drops way in behind, now falls in behind Turner and Ogan. All the way down to 14th place there. That's big trouble for Andres Tishavari because that sets him off the path of the podium in silver. Now 4th place in division. We see here for Turner still pursuing Robert Hogan during this time. Let's go to catch back on board then with the fight we were watching on with just a moment ago. Lee Evans versus Mr. Bernie. V10 versus V8 then. The last of the V10s from Lamborghini before their introduction earlier, I believe last year, of the Temerario GT3. The Huracan still a very, very popular choice in GT3 racing. It's been around the block here since the mid-2010s. The car's introduction in 2014. The successor of the Lamborghini Gallardo. The last of the 5-litre V10s as well. They moved on to the 5.2-litre unit, which gives it this very distinct, almost odd, I think it's odd firing, if I'm not mistaken, the note we have here. It's what gives this almost the same kind of underpinnings as an inline 5 engine, say for the example best given I'd seen has been almost like slamming 2 Quattro engines together to give it this very distinct note. Of course, this engine was co-developed by Audi themselves, so it's a very familiar note to them. On the inside, they rub doors at turn 11. That got dicey, and onto the gravel went Mr. Bernie. He's not going to be pleased with having lost that position out. That really did feel like somewhat of a shoulder check from his point of view. Up and around turn 1 over the crest in towards the Andretti hairpin. Will he be going for something a little bit out there to try and retake that position for 4th place? It is worth noting a considerable build-up of cars behind them. Ian Oates, of course, not too far away, about 1.7 seconds, and swiftly approaching is that trio of cars from behind them, being Alexander, O'Driscoll and Rod. In between them at the moment, though, is Ryan Castle. It's worth going to catch on board with Castle just to see how he's faring against all of it during this time. We see Graham McNally there towards the back of the field. Going to catch in, if possible, here with Ryan Castle. He is swamped in the middle of the approaching pack of back row starters during today's race. Now, they've already been passed up by the 315, and by looks of it, could be very well passed up by the 420, so the 61 would be next on them here. Number 53 momentarily brings out the yellow flags. That would be Callum Gray, and they're just getting up past him now. All 3 of the back row bandits now out past. The number 61 gets up into 9th place, so Ryan Castle still holds bronze's lead, but is now in 10th. Looking here for Galaxy, it's lonely at the top, and certainly the case here. It's unparalleled performance from the 55. He's come week in, week out, and cleared house in Platinum. Currently undefeated this season would be the case if he crosses the line first among the fray today. He's 11 seconds over his nearest Platinum, that being Declan Anderson in 2nd place. We see here Dexter V. Davies, 2 separate divisions, of course, at war here for 16th overall on track. The damage on the nose there of Davies. He'll be reluctant to bring the car in any earlier than his strategy would have allowed for, but that could definitely be a contributing factor to an earlier stop for him today. With that front end hanging low on the car, he's going to have the aero doing less work for him here. That car's going to be stiffer to drive, harder to rotate, and less predictable all around. Looking in here, the number 6, Ian Oates, now fights with that of Alan Alexander. So Oates at this time still hopeful he can try and intercept a Gold Division lead. He's 2.2 seconds behind Mr. Bernie. He's got clear line of sight on him just over the shoulder here of that blue and mint number 315. Down through the corkscrew. You can see it was a very rocky start there for Alan Alexander, so he just had to sort of grit his teeth and bear through it, I think was the case for him there, because car already stepped sideways over the crest, just had to snap it back down through turn 8A at the end of the corkscrew, then into the rainy at turn 9. For Ian Oates at this time, he is in a very uncomfortable spot. Caught between a rock and a hard place here. That number 6 now fends off against the 420 and the 61. Unlike Ryan Castle, who was leading his division when these 3 passed on by, Ian Oates would be far more resilient to want to move out of the way, knowing he's still within arm's length of a division lead off of Mr. Bernie, currently 5th on track at the moment. And since that overtake from Evans, he's lost a lot of ground away from the cars behind. Case in point here with that number 315 closing in. Looming over his shoulder there like a vulture, waiting to take hold of that top 5. Right now, though, for Ian Oates, he does find himself in a very uneasy spot. The 420 is charging up behind him. Then the 61 not too far away either. Oates does not want to lose the opportunity here because it's going to be far more difficult for the next at least 30 or so minutes of racing. If these three get out past him for him to try and intercept Mr. Burney, he's going to be hoping they can intercept him as quickly, if not faster. And we can see up ahead, already is the case for Alan Alexander, that he is fighting with Mr. Burney at this time, whilst Oates tries to fend off an advance by John O'Driscoll. So going to catch on board if we can here with that intercepting Bentley. As we do also take note here, Palumbo v T. Shavari for a fight on 14th place. Going to take a look in though here. Mr. Burney defends his ground, but we're going to look on with the attacking angle here with the Bentley of Alan Alexander, a driver we have seen his talents demonstrated multiple times in the last couple of months here. One of his notable accolades on our screens was the first ever rookie driver to take a win outright on the NLRL Sunday League. Did so in a properly soaked Kyalami with Porsche. On board at the moment then here. With Alan Alexander, the 315 still in pursuit, half a second as it stands right now through turn 5. The Bentley has just been this remarkable bit of kit in his hands at the moment. Few is it we have any examples of drivers excelling in the Bentley. I think one of the best examples that spring to mind was the entire 787 lineup over on what was the second season of the NLRL Console Endurance Series. It was Exclusive Esports who cleared house with Bentley with the 787 car. Among its most common participants was that of Florian Oxman and Nat Bennett. There were plenty of others to step into the seat over the course of that time during that season, and now we see the continuation of Bentley's presence in modern ACC through individual drives like that of Alan Alexander's. We do have note there of a yellow flag. Andres Tishavari stranded, as it would appear, off the exit of turn 5, and there was another car afflicted. I believe was the 247. It might have actually been the 88. I'm not 100% clear there. There were two cars at a point, but this one is the one that sprung out to mind here, just off the exit of turn 5, now through turn 6, up through the Rahal, back up and going. You can see, though, notable damage on that Porsche. I think there may have very likely been a case where he's been shunted out wide at that section of the track, just off the exit of turn 5. It's easy to go side by side into that section, not so easy to stay there. And out behind this fight, we still see what has now been the advance up past Oates for O'Driscoll. Puts 4 temps on him at turn 5, now backs him up into the 61, while the 315 works away to see a top 5 in his hands here, just before we're out of the first 25 minutes of racing. Coming up on the first half hour, not too long from now, we can see there was gazing over the shoulder either side, trying to see where can I get the inside line off this guy. It has not been easy. We can see a little bit of what looks like desync there for the 315, so he's got to stay cautious of things that could result in an incident. The 315 still hounding away. You can see that very clear size difference. The Bentley is one of the largest GT3s going, but in spite of its tremendous size, it is actually remarkably, as we see there, in the background, that was Ian Oates off of turn 11. He has got back up and running, so no warrant there for a yellow flag just yet. That was very sketchy indeed. I think it was just out wide under the brakes. Number 96 brings out the yellow flags, and I believe there that was the retirement we've just saw for Robert Ogan in silver. I believe that could be his end of days here in the Laguna Seca Raceway. Yes, we've just been confirmed the retirement there of the 96 following an incident at the Corkscrew and Rainy Curve. 50 minutes left to go then here in Laguna Seca, down now to 18 cars left in this race. We're down Osborne and Ogan as we continue to see fighting here for Mr. Burney and Alan Alexander. Behind them is the case now where Ian Oates, from that incident at turn 11, forfeits position to Kieran Rodd for 8th place. This being one of the nearest fights on track at this time. We'll stay on board with Alan. Of course, playing on controller, if you can believe that one. Of course, taking a look at the inputs, you'd certainly believe it. But of how he's been able to corral the car, it's quite remarkable to see this driver going toe-to-toe with rivals on track, most of which are on rig. And these rigs, they can cost anywhere between, say, about £500 to anywhere to a couple of grand. it is quite remarkable to see all of that hardware can still be upended by a 50 quid Xbox controller if you've got the right kind of mindset, the right kind of driver. Speaking of controller users, it's worth noting as well that they still have a very viable place in the competitive market on sim racing. Now, once you get up towards stuff like iRacing, that's where it becomes a little bit muddy in the waters. But here on ACC, with great deliberation, there is the chances for controller players to be very competitive. I mean, case in point, we've just been given the information there as well. Brooklyn Donkin, who we saw to a win at Laguna, Seca, sorry, Paul Ricard earlier this week in the wet conditions on Fats GT. He was playing on controller as well. Kieran Rod plays on controller as well. Alan Alexander, we of course saw his win in Kyle Army, was one of his most historic victories on our screens. Did it on controller. Sometimes it just takes the right kind of driver, not the right kind of equipment. There are, of course, benefits to playing on controller as well. When it comes to the steering, very easy to snap the steering around. So often is the case in situations where the cars will step out wide, it's very easy to react because you can go all the way from full lock left to full lock right in about half a second, which is not something many can do on wheel without breaking both their wrists off. You see there, very nearly had the move on Mr. Bernie, but a better exit by the McLaren up over the crest at turn one. Now all of this is inviting back in that of John O'Driscoll. Is going for the inside, goes to 315, leaps for it, but could have a switchback played on him here, and that's absolutely what's happening. Great switchback from the 196, but bear in mind the 315 is still on the inside, so looking for a returning volley here in a car that we labeled the Battle Cruiser back in Brands Hatch. Now gets the leg up, trying to go from around the outside. There was the 196, but actually makes contact with the 420. He's in the wall. That was him in the wall. Now, it was very hard to see the actual collision with the wall, but you saw how it started here down at turn 4. Take a look there, 420. You can see how the car pitches in. That was hit from sort of middle to rear. He was on the gravel. Then you see the back end step all the way around. So he's come up off the gravel, spun across the track into the tyre wall off the exit of turn 4. He will be furious with that because it's worth taking note of the fact, yes, the 196 is now down, but he is now in behind Ian Oates, who now leads gold. And for Ian Oates, this is coming up very, very tidy for him at this time. We're about 10 minutes out from the halfway on this race at the moment. He leads in division. Taking a look at things, he's going to need every ground he can get. Every single inch of ground, I would say, is more closer, because he stands in a joint lead with Chris Davies. Mr. Bernie now having fallen in behind him. The 3 remaining golds on this field now scattered among the field. 2.1 seconds between Oates and Bernie. Davies all the way down the order at this time. Looking further up the order here, we see with the 3 platinum drivers who by all accounts have stolen away a lot of the viewing time on today's performance. And in terms of where they stand in the championship, for Alan Alexander right now on track, that would put him in a 4th place in the platinum. So he's behind Evans, Anderson and Galaxy. In terms of how that affronts to his goals to stay ahead of Anderson, I'd say that's his main target right now. There's an 11-point gap between these two. Anderson's got 2 positions on him, so that gap's going to start coming down for the fight on the podium. For John O'Driscoll, who's right along with him there, he'll outscore him, so he'll stay ahead. But I think there is a very sizable threat here for O'Driscoll to lose the podium from their current finishing positions on track to Declan Anderson. It's worth noting during this time we have seen plenty of drivers into the pit lane. So that's Matt Critt in with the number 92, Andres Tijavari and Callum Gray. Get a look at the front end. What happened there for the Mustang? Number 53 is in. 2nd time in now on the pits after his incident at the corkscrew earlier today. That has gone horrifically wrong for him. Kieran Rod now has his sights here set on John O'Driscoll for 6th. Further behind, it's worth noting here, Mr. Bernie and Ryan Castle emerge up and ahead there of Matt Critt leaving the pit lane. These two look to be captured in their own little fight for 9th place. 9/10 of a second between each other. Ian Oates is losing ground, as it would appear. Now only 1.2 seconds ahead of Mr. Bernie, so the fight for the gold division lead could be back on. And having a glimpse in here, the fight on 6th place, technically for a division top 5 in platinum for Kieran Rod. This is where the pretenses of their already uneasy armistice drop by the wayside, as we see there with the first opportunity presented to him. He leaps for it over O'Driscoll. There is the chances of fight back between these two. They're not afraid to throw the gloves off when the time calls upon for it. Out of turn 10, sliding out goes the number 61. The 420 had a glimpse there for the inside, but didn't commit under fears of colliding with the Lamborghini. Was a little too far away for that to have been the logical decision there, so well played by O'Driscoll to fight the urge to send it for the inside, but a great move by Rod. Capitalized on one little mistake there at the corkscrew. That's all it takes in some cases for drivers to fall positions. Still watching here the emergence of a fight for the gold division lead. Bernie v Oates. Right behind them is the bronze division leader, Ryan Castle. Reviewing back through the last couple of wins this season, it's a case for Castle at this time. While he leads the bronze division, he is still yet to see himself with a win. Not a lead, sorry. He finds himself second, but he has yet to see a win. My mistake. I was thinking there of, looking back towards the bronze division, I was thinking of Callum Turner. So when Castle finds himself in second, he's still yet to see a win. It's been solid and consistent results here to find himself where he is in the championship. Of course, still needs to clear 25 points to put himself level with Callum Turner. With Turner currently in second as far as things concerned, the gap will start to wilt away, but slowly but surely. This is going to be a bit of a slow burn fight for these two in the bronze division, heading on into the second half of the championship after next week. Taking a look here with Lee Evans, he's into the pit lane in the number 44. Had a great fight for the longest time there, up in the top 10. Now into the paddock he goes. Following him is John O'Driscoll, first of the trio to come into the pit lane. So the 61 and the 315 stay out. And this is undercutting the midway by about 7 minutes here. So a very curious turn for these drivers. Not by about 7 minutes, sorry, by about, looking there would have been by about 5 minutes. So about 3 laps here at Seca. 3 or 4. You see then for Ryan Castle, still glued to this fight up in front of him between Bernie and Oates. Now we'll go and catch on board with Mr. Bernie. This could be a rather curious perspective to watch on with. Going to look on then with the point of view of the McLaren fighting to retain that gold division lead. On board here with Mr. Bernie. Still with his sights fixed on that fight for a division lead. 6th place overall within his grasp. Down through turn 10 into turn 11 we go now under the brakes. Into this last corner. Great exit there by Bernie. So he's in the slipstream on the Ferrari. He's had a good exit. This could really build up into something quite grand on the run up towards the Andretti. Over turn 1's crest we go. In towards turn 2, hard onto the brakes there, holds the further line out because he wants to go for a later apex. That's opened the door up just long enough there to sweep on through, but it'll be to the outside at turn 3. Meanwhile, 247 momentarily brought out the white flags, retaining his position. Good defense there by Ian Oates, but now he's got the 196 parked all on his rear bumper. And for about a moment there, heading up through turn 4, he was so close he could stick a marshmallow out the windscreen and toast it on the exhaust fumes coming from that Ferrari. Wouldn't have been particularly tasty, mind you, but that's just a testament to how close these two were. Practically shoving each other up through to turn 5. Now off the exit of turn 6 on the Rahal straight we go. Heading to the corkscrew, later of the two under brakes. The Ferrari just a little bit sharper in that section. McLaren still no slouch whatsoever. This was a car that had a stranglehold on competition here in the former VSR GT3 Championship. You see right behind them, they're screaming up to the rear quarter. That was quite something. Full Sterling Moss there from behind from Ryan Castle. Now firmly in the slipstream, he'll be hunting him down. You can see covering off the inside. Goes the number 6 over turn 1 in towards the Andretti hairpin for the fight of what is now 5th place with Leroy Donald into the pit lane. This still pertains to the gold division lead here between Oates and Bernie. Getting a look on board from the defending angle very quickly here from the Ferrari. Oates still holds his ground, but it is not one easily held for him here now up into 5th overall on today's session. We step ever closer to the midway. We're about actually a minute and a half actually out from the midway. And through this first half of racing, we've seen some tremendous action so far. This is the latest chapter among it. The fight for the gold lead intercepted here by the leader of bronze. Ryan Castle gets toe-to-toe with his fellow McLaren, Mr. Bernie, both of which hounding for position in the top 5 over this one here. Ian Oates goes deep in towards the corkscrew. This could be the Requiem knell on his control of the gold division lead on the inside of the rainy curve. Is the McLaren, but pinched away there only just by Ian Oates. That nearly kept the door open wide enough to allow in Ryan Castle. That's likely the case there on the gravel. Goes that of the number 196. Ian Oates dives to the pit lane to capitalize. Following him in goes Mr. Bernie. Oh, and he hits the wall. It was going to happen to someone. It was going to happen to someone. Both of them into the pit lane. This is a race now from the pits. We're going to watch this. A very rare thing we get to see. These are 2 drivers and their team of invisible mechanics, because we don't get the actual pit stop animation from being in the spectator's seat, fighting against one another to get out of that pits as soon as possible. So from our point of view, they look a bit daft because it looks like they've come into the pits and are starting to think about brand new tyres until one wills itself into existence. But from their point of view, they've got the mechanics working away on their car. Really wish that would have been something we got to see from the spectator's point of view. Lo and behold, there's only so much. And we see there, faster of the 2 was the 196. So was that little bump in the pit lane enough to disrupt his pit stop? Could that have been something that he just didn't will out of his pit strategy, was to not repair any damages? But doesn't matter. Up in front, a drive-through for Mr. Bernie. Oh my goodness. Speeding in the pit lane. Mr. Bernie has a drive-through penalty. So even though he got the faster of 2 in the pits, it matters for nil. We also see a stop go there for Sean McNally. He's pulled to one side. That is more than likely his day done as he pulls the plug on his Laguna Seca performance today. That is heartbreak for Mr. Bernie. That was a perfect pit stop we just saw off the 196 McLaren. And it all matters for nil because he's got that drive through. That is frankly brutal. Also in the pit lane there, Anderson, Castle and Alexander. As we're just over the halfway mark of today's race. Oh, hang on just a minute. What's going on here for Ryan Castle? Has he missed his pit box? I think he has. This could turn things over to Callum Turner's point of view. Now with Castle officially in his pit box, Callum Turner gets up past. That has added quite the bit of leverage now for his pit strategy. He knows he'll have to come in, but he knows how the 77 just took a royal minute in the paddock. If he can get even a bang average pit lap time, or pit stop time I should say, it will definitely put him closer. I can't vouch yet to whether or not it's going to put him in the lead, but it will put him certainly closer. Up at the front of the field, the 2 still yet to have pit. Faye Galaxy and Kieran Rod in the Platinum division. Rod will be fearing losing out ground here, not only to his fellow back row bandits, but also to that of Declan Anderson, who recently came to the pits not too long ago. We see off the exit here goes Ryan Castle and Mr. Bernie. Bernie serving a drive-through. Castle now having left the pits himself. That was a much longer than necessary pit stop there for the 77 and could confound his efforts to maintain a bronze division lead here in round 3 of the championship. Albeit, oh, and it's not getting any better for him there, doing his best impression of a rallycross car off the exit of the pits. It's a very tight road there, and I don't think he was expecting how much brakes he would have had to use. He falls in behind Mr. Bernie. I don't think it can get much worse for him at this time. He's just going to have to hope now that Turner finds much of the same problems. Side by side here, Callum Gray's going to have to shift out of the way here for Callum Turner, who's already taken wins in the bronze division, so much so that he's currently in the lead by 25 points over Ryan Castle. As the only two remaining bronze drivers on the field, Connor Osborne was the other to have started today, but he's retired from round 3. He'll stay right where he is in 4th place. So really the only two charts we're seeing change here in the bronze standings are the ones right at the very head of it. 1st and 2nd will be seeing a change to their points. The rest of it will stay as it is for the run in towards Barcelona next week, with a no-show from Trigg and Kovalik and a DNF for Connor Osborne. A curious development indeed. See at the moment, Rod electing to stay out. As for Turner, we followed on with him there in his efforts to get out past the 53 of Callum Gray. We see getting up along with him that, if I'm not mistaken, yes, that is Leroy Donald. And my word, he made his way into the picture very quickly. That even took us off guard. Wasn't even paying attention to where the 14 was for a moment there. Still leading silver, of course, so uncontested. And he seems to be breaking what has been quite a prolific curse for drivers far out of their field in the category, where the rest of their respective driver category is way down the order. They're the only one to be breaking the mold into the higher divisions. Often it's been a case where they are caught up right in the squeeze of it, but this one has held out remarkably well. It has been quite the MVP performance today from Leroy Donald, looking to collect on a silver division win. If he can hold his nerve for the next 33 minutes, he's got this one nice, neat and tidy. Taking a look here, Dexter v Oates. Difference in pit strategy at the moment means that Oates is going to have, by looks of it, a little bit more advantage here. Could have had new tyres on board. On the run down towards the Andretti. Right now is among the closest fights on track, so we'll got a catch on board from the attacking angle here, getting on board with the Ferrari. Ian Oates making his way back up through the top 10. Now his concerns still remain the same here for a lead of the gold division. Right now he holds that ground over Mr. Burney by quite a fair few cars around him. Now having put Ben Dexter at his rear quarter off the exit of turn 5. 32 minutes left to go here in Laguna Seca. We are given information now in the pit lane as we speak is the leading 55. Fake Galaxy is in. No word yet on if Kieran Rod will join him. For our understanding, I believe Rod is still a fair distance down the track at this time, having a glance in. Rod currently at the corkscrew. Behind him is Andres Tishavari. You see here Turner now having fallen in behind Alexander. Leroy Donald in the mix here, I believe is, yes, quite a fair distance ahead, but the next target on the list for Alan Alexander. Behind them you can see is Lee Evans. John O'Driscoll behind in 8th. Ian Oates 9th, up and ahead of Ben Dexter, who rounds out the top 10 at the moment, in towards turn 2. Galaxy, as it would appear to be the case, is the only one to have come into the pits here on lap 31, as Rod stays out, and so too did Ben Dexter, and by looks of it, at this time, Callum Turner. See, being intercepted by Lee Evans. Now, we've seen Evans get his claws out in the last couple of seasons here. I don't imagine this is going to be something he's willing to play nice about. He gets right up and ahead there to much his own detriment, as it would happen to be the case, because way late on the brakes in towards the corkscrew. Fortunately, though, he keeps things well held in the number 44. Will there be the considerations then for Turner to come in? His main priority is keeping the 77 behind him. He knows, though, in the next 30 minutes, he's going to have to see that pit lane by the end of today's race, or it will be a 130-second penalty. Kieran Rod, still no word on a run into the pits. Now, we have seen historically Rod likes to go for much later runs to the pits. We'll see if he's willing to play into what has been a growing prediction of his performance. Will he be choosing to play things a lot closer to the chest by the end of this race, hold things out for as long as he can go? Already takes a gamble every time he runs into a session here, because he starts from the back alongside O'Driscoll and Alexander. Is he willing to play another gamble today to see how late can he make that pit stop? The problem with doing that, though, is that with these pit strategies, especially ones that encourage a mandate of fuel and tires, which I believe is the case for this championship as well, it doesn't age like wine to stay out past that sort of average midway zone for pit stops. It ages like milk, and your performance is only going to get worse and worse, even if you think it's getting better and better, because those tires are flagging. They're going to be getting older. They're going to be getting more worn in. Now, albeit these Pirellis can still last upwards of an hour. It's been shown before, albeit with great difficulty. And I believe we have seen earlier this season were punctures for the Pirellis in less time than that. So that may be a concern here for the number 61. I think it was for O'Driscoll we saw punctures, whether in this championship or over on the Sunday League where we also see him compete. We know that in less time, those tyres can properly give out under the stresses they'll be under today. And you can see that whole right side of the car. Oh my goodness, almost proving my point as we speak there. The whole right side of the car is going to be under so much stress in that third sector, taking the load of the car as it barrels down through turn 9. And this obviously being a technically from its layout, this is a anti-clockwise track. It is a majority of right-hand turns. That right side of the car has to be set up ever so slightly different to the left on a track like this to get the most out of it. That can often come down to just intricacies in tire pressure. There are still a fair few left turns, but the majority of where the tires are being broken in on are these longer right hands here, such as turn 5 and 6, then also at rainy, left hand turns, where the right hand side of the car is getting done in more, not where a right hand turn occurs. I don't know why I was saying left and right so many times I forgot what it even meant, but no, to clarify there, these longer left hands are going to be where the car is under a lot more stress on that right hand side, and vice versa. So there, we don't have to bring that one up again and fail a second time on a run down through the rainy. Number 61 still out at this time. He was very sketchy in his last lap. You see, I think that was sparks there underneath that Lamborghini. Can we get a look at that on the replays here, as we now see going into the pits is that of Kieran Rodd. On the live footage there in the bottom right, Rodd is in. But I just want to take a look here. I'm pretty certain that was sparks from underneath the car there. Yes, there was. So, bottoming out on the Lamborghini just off the exit of Rainey. Very curious stuff for the 61. He's in. Oh, no, don't get me wrong there. I wanted to take a look away to see what the 55 was up to. Don't think we didn't catch that one. Look at that on the replay. That's another driver missing their pit box. Oh, Lord. It's been a tough day. I think what happens for these drivers is that pit box comes up on them so quickly in Seca, because of course with the kind of paddocks they share here, you've got prototypes from the IMSA Sports Car Championship, you have the Indy cars from the IndyCar series, the Monterey Grand Prix. There are cars with this pit lane being designed around them. It's of course two of the largest series in American motorsports outside of stock car. It's been a case where it's been designed for cars that will get slowed down a lot quicker. And oh, hang on a moment there. That is the number 196. Mr. Burney has spun around off the exit of turn 6. Getting out past him there goes Ryan Castle. But that, for Mr. Burney, has sundered his chances of that Gold Division win. As a matter of fact, right behind him there is the Gold Division third place driver, Chris Davies. So it could even forfeit his place in that leading two positions. He could be at the back of the podium by the end of this race. 25 minutes left to go, and that is an upsetting development there, because that's cost him dearly as Ian Oates looks to glide away with a Gold Division win in his hands here. 25.5 minutes left to go. Let's go to catch on board with this. One of the recent developments up the field during this time is that of the 315 versus the 14. Alan Alexander versus Leroy Donald for third place. Now, Alexander still holds third in division in the Platinums, but this would be for an outright position. One that I imagine these two, in the absence of other competition, may be something they're willing to explore. Often is the case where there's too much risk involved from either category with their aspirations set for higher positions often would be the case where they have worked together in the past. We've seen this in quite a fair few series to share the same driver structure as this, where we have multiple separate divisions based off of driver affinity and skill. You see though, for Leroy Donald, he is really stretching the definitions of what constitutes a silver driver. Because this, I think, very likely is a track he has done his homework on, because this is a brutally efficient performance compared to the last 2 weeks for him. I mean, even in saying that, Spa did give us a lot to speak about with Donald. There is no surprising as to why he's in the lead of silver, but this has been a cut clear out among the rest, because he is just miles off from the rest of silver and going toe-to-toe with the platinums. He's skipped gold entirely to have a shot here at the veritable Goliath of this grid for the David his category is. In towards turn 11, you can see the 315 setting himself up for a switchback with a Porsche a little sprightlier under acceleration off the exit of turn 11, and they're trying to cut the toe off of him. He's going to hold his way back onto the racing line. He's not 100% sure if the Bentley would commit to a run on the inside. It's going to be the contrary. They're going for the outside for a later apex at the Andretti hairpin, but parking the bus there. Moving like the England v Mexico match a few days ago in the World Cup. He's just parked the bus off the apex. He's not letting him on by. Playing solid defense there from Leroy Donald. He wants an outright podium today. It would be the cherry on top of what is already a very clear and dominant performance in silver. And I'd very likely case further down the line that Leroy Donald is gearing up for. I would say even this is a platinum level drive. I mean, gold certainly would be a befitting title for him. And you see Waylay on the brakes. I think he's just flown a little too close to the sun there, and that will be the position off of him, off the exit of the corkscrew. And fair play to him for holding out for as long as he could there, but I think he stretched a little too far on what the Porsche could give him. Of course, one of the best cars for braking and stopping power in GT3, but just couldn't get him slowed down in time to hold on to his position. Out behind them, you can see a growing fight between Evans and O'Driscoll. This could be an exciting one to see developing in the background. They're about a second out from one another. Seeing here with John O'Driscoll. Up and around turn 1, in towards turn 2 we go. Just under 22 minutes left to go here at Laguna Seca. And taking a look at where we stand so far, Fake Galaxy leads over Declan Anderson in second, Alan Alexander in third, and Leroy Donald in fourth. Lee Evans rounds out the top 5. Behind him, we see here with John O'Driscoll in sixth, Kieran Rodd in seventh. Callum Turner leads bronze at the moment, but still has to come to the pits at some point. He's in 8th place. 9th for Ian Oates. Rounding out the top 10, just coming into the pits now, is Ben Dexter. That'll put Ryan Castle up to 11th place. Mr. Burney, currently 12th, will be moving up into 11th in a moment's time, but he's being hounded for position there for control of Gold Division second by Chris Davies, who is still harbouring damage on the 28. These two now up to 11th and 12th. Matt Critt currently 14th, soon to be 13th. Giovanni Palumbo in 15th. Andres Tichavari in 16th, and Callum Gray in 17th. Multiple DNFs off of what was a 20-car grid to start today's session. Among them have been Sean McNally, and then further down the line was also retirements there for, if I'm not mistaken, Robert Ogan, among others as well. As well as Connor Osborne. O'Driscoll v Evans. Now, it is worth considering options here. This stands as Division 4th in the Platinums, but 5th overall through the valiant performance there of the Silver Division's number 14, Leroy Donald. Still punching well above his weight today. 247 picks up a stop go 30. That's Ben Dexter off the exit of the pit lane at the moment as he gets passed there by Giovanni Palumbo. But Palumbo will be still onto that corner. As we do just note there, that was another driver disconnect as out wide went the 247. Still struggling to think who that was. If I'm not mistaken, that might have been No, I'm drawing up blanks there. Anyone in Twitch chat would be able to tell us. It was towards, I believe, the back of the field there was trouble at the time. We see Callum Turner into the pit lane, so retaking the lead of bronze goes Ryan Castle. So now with 19.5 minutes coming up on, left for him to play for. Castle has seen the red carpet roll out for a bronze division win, and that'll be, I believe, his first this season. Looking back through the previous wins so far, bronze has given us wins for Turner and Osborne. Castle, second in the bronze championship, is still yet to see one. 19 minutes to play with, could see him to his first division win of the season here in Laguna Seca. Seeing here, recent development between Davies and Bernie. Previous interval showed 650 thousandths of a second. Mr. Bernie now having, by looks of it here, fallen way behind Davies at this time. There was some variety of incident between turns 5 and 6 that hasn't been reported until now. So we find ourselves staring at 16 cars left on this grid. Let's go to catch on board then with these two. John O'Driscoll versus Lee Evans. Up the Rahal straight to the corkscrew we go. These are two among some of the greatest sort of pack fighters we've seen in the former VSR GT3 Championship. They've been quite exciting drivers to watch on with in the last couple of seasons. Now share a grid today for the run in towards lap 40. 18 minutes left to go in Laguna Seca, and you can see what a tremendous bit of desync as we were watching on with the Ferrari of John O'Driscoll. Heading up over turn 1. 247 having served their stop-go penalty, and we see there the door opens up at the Andretti, but slams shut once again as Evans holds off O'Driscoll. Going to catch on board if we can here with Lee Evans. Now, of course, driving in platinum, fights with O'Driscoll for what is going to be Division 4th at this time. And a bit of a wobble there off the exit of turn 4. The Lamborghini, even in spite of its heavier set ballast for today's event, is still quite a unstable package. Much sharper around the edges than the Ferrari. Takes a very, very specific line of thinking and setup and driving etiquette to get the most out of, and Evans has took to it, I would say, rather remarkably well, as things would stand, with his previous time being with Mercedes, then Nissan. The shift over to a mid-engine car was one that always perplexed us here for Evans, but this seems to be something that was a lot more thought out than we previously admitted. Watching then here with the fight of 5th place ongoing from the point of view of the 44 down through to Andre. Up in front there, Callum Turner. The blue flags will come out for that 111 in a moment's time. Coming up onto the last quarter hour of racing here for these drivers, so we are staring down the sights of what could possibly be the scope of about 12 or 13 more laps here in Laguna Seca. Through to the corkscrew here, we see with the Lamborghini and the Ferrari, of course, two manufacturers that have shared in one of the greatest rivalries in automotive history, albeit not one that fared so well on the track. Lamborghini's main motorsports endeavor has been their GT3 program. They have tried many a time to fight at the top level of endurance racing and have routinely fallen by the wayside, often to Ferrari. The story of Lamborghini is still one of the greatest in automotive history. As loosely along the bases, Ferruccio Lamborghini was a tractor manufacturer in post-war Italy. One day approached Enzo Ferrari surrounding concerns in the braking system on his Ferrari, of which he personally owned, and opted to share their combined engineering talent to create some of the best sports cars the world would ever know. He was turned away by Ferrari, and in defiance of Enzo, would create what we now know as Lamborghini Automobili. Their first car was the 350 GT in the mid-60s, and their magnum opus of sorts, their real middle finger to Ferrari. As we see there, that's Leroy Donald falling in behind Evans and O'Driscoll. So a very surprising turn of events as we recount the history of Lamborghini. Their real middle finger to Ferrari was the Lamborghini Miura, which I would still wholeheartedly say is one of the prettiest cars of all time. And these two have shared in a surviving legacy of competition for what now stands here as well on 60 years between the two, constantly clashing heads to be the most prolific supercar manufacturers of all time. It's weird to think now, given the situation Ferrari's in with their current lineup, that Lamborghini, after all these years, is finally winning. All you need to do is take a look at what either manufacturer is doing. Ferrari's current lineup of cars is a concerning one indeed. You've got the 12-Cilindri, which is a rather mushy retake of the Daytona. You've got the Purosangue, which is a ghastly performance SUV. I'm not sure who in their sane mind would purchase something of the sorts. And of course, you've got the Luce, which is just, well, it's just drab. It's a 640,000 euro block of soap. Designed by a man who makes smartphones. Yes, very good smartphones. But you don't want a smartphone for 640,000 euros. You want a Ferrari. And that's sadly what the Luce is not, to the eyes of many. Whereas you look at Lamborghini, what are they doing? The same thing they've been doing since 2000. A V10 and a V12. Now a V8 and a V12. As we see there, trouble for Evans. 4 attempts away now from O'Driscoll. One fell swoop down at the corkscrew. Hopefully he wasn't watching it on the stream there and was being distracted away by the history lesson. But on our way down through to turn 11, as we continue to pass the time with these drivers, away from our little miniature rant there about Ferrari and Lamborghini, we do find then a new 4th place. Obviously was originally some troubles there for Leroy Donald down at turn 6. He was out wide on the run to the Rahal straight, fell in behind O'Driscoll and Evans, and now we've seen recently there O'Driscoll got the leg up on Evans after Evans ran wide at the corkscrew. We see out in front there, that's Matt Cripp. That was a bit of desync if you just saw that one there between those two. Let's have a little glance on the replays. You could see exactly what went on during that time. And you will see the front end of that 92 ping out a little bit to the left as if it had been hit. And we did speak about this with the 420. There was a bit of desync. Watch this here. Never touched him, yet the car moved. The Phantom of Laguna Seca then, the 420 Ferrari 296. And you know what, back on the Ferrari, we did speak a lot about their other models. And I think this one here, the 296, is the last of their properly great cars. Because right now you've got the SF90, which, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad car. I don't mind the SF90, but it's just something's not right about it. I think the 296 still embodies why Ferrari is an interesting manufacturer. It may not be really what most would call a stereotypical Ferrari. It is everything that Ferrari stood against for the longest time. It's a V6 twin turbo, and the road car is a soft hybrid with, if I'm not mistaken, an actual electric mode. It defies everything Ferrari stood for the last 60 years, but it still has the spirit, and that is something I think that matters a lot more. Whereas, I don't know who their designer is now at Ferrari, but it's questionable who they're giving jobs out to these days, because their latest cars, I'm sorry, but they just don't look that good. The 296, I would say, is probably the last of their great designs. Their one-off stuff, still great. Don't get me wrong. The Daytona SP2, great. Monza SP1 and SP2, great. Even I would go as far to say elements of the F80 are all right. But altogether, it's muddled. And away then from what has been a miniature solo podcast session surrounding Ferrari. We're still on here with O'Driscoll as battling starts to dissipate. Now, closest gap right now is Evans to Donald, 1.3 seconds, but unlikely to see any further progress here as the drivers prioritize survival for the last 9.5 minutes of racing. If you are curious to find out more along that sort of line where you've got the almost podcast style dialogue, we are planning on bringing up a podcast series here on TRTN. That's still in a work in progress state. That could hopefully be out by the end of the year. Off the exit then of the Andretti hairpin, Leroy Donald still trying to claw up ground here to Lee Evans, but that Lamborghini is hell-bent on returning to that 4th place spot ahead of O'Driscoll. But you can see the gap right now, 2.5 seconds. Could the writing be on the wall, so to speak, here for John O'Driscoll? No, not John O'Driscoll, sorry, Lee Evans against John O'Driscoll in the background there. In the gravel, contact between Callum Turner and Kieran Rodd. Look at this on the replays here. This was off in the distance. We were watching in with that of Lee Evans. In the background up towards turn 5, we just catch after the moment of impact there between the 111 and the 61. Very, very bizarre stuff indeed. We see as well that Matt Critt gets the leg up here on Callum Turner for 12th because of that incident down at turn 5. Gets up and ahead of him down through to the corkscrew. Up on and ahead there to 12th place. And now that we find ourselves in another relatively quiet period here as the drivers chip away for the next 7 minutes, we'll divert our conversation previously surrounding Ferrari and Lamborghini over towards Bentley, because it is a curious little motor, the Bentley Continental on this grid. A 4-litre twin-turbo V8 engine. And one of a rare number of projects by M Sport, the same head boffins right now currently behind Ford's presence in the World Rally Championship. They helped to work alongside the development of the, I believe it was the engine for this car, whereas Bentley Motorsports handled the basis of the aerodynamics and parts of the bodywork. I believe it was somewhat of a symbiotic relationship, if memory serves right, between these two. And it is a very curious car, the Bentley Continental. Of course, Bentley has seen over the last couple of decades a modicum of success in endurance racing. They won the 2003 24 Hours of Le Mans with their prototype car, the Speed 8. Bentley has a surviving legacy in endurance racing. It was once described with the older Bentley Blower as the fastest lorry of all time by none other than Ettore Bugatti, the founder of Bugatti. Into the pit lane here, this is a curious one. Lee Evans is in the number 44. The Lamborghini has come to a stop there in the pits. Was there perhaps some complications on fuel? Evans is in. Rodd now takes up the helm of 6th place, so the two Lamborghinis swap place there. Evans into the pits, now off the jacks. I think it was fuel. A pit stop that quick, normally it's a case where the tires take upwards of 25 seconds. That, I believe, was fuel for the Lamborghini. It is quite a thirsty engine on this grid, that 5.2 litre. And that's the same trouble that you find with, for example, Mercedes and Ford. They have even larger engines there. Ford with a 5.4 litre, Mercedes with a 6.3 litre. We see there, out wide also. That's many drivers now struggling in that same area of the track. Taking a look here, Callum Turner versus Matt Critt for 12th place. We saw the exchange between them a moment ago. Of course, McLaren have recently announced they are developing a new variant of the 720S family. Well, now it is I think it's the 750S family, but the one that they're making, if I'm not mistaken, is called the 788HS. And I'm not 100% sure if it will debut at this year's Goodwood, but they have showed off previous models before. They debuted the 750S at Goodwood, and they updated the 720S's design and debuted that at Goodwood as well. The 720S debuted at Goodwood 2017, and so did their MSO variants. I seem to remember rightly when I visited Goodwood many, many years ago. During that time, there was this wonderful, it was this wine red with gold wheels MSO operations McLaren 720S. It was gorgeous. So they are looking to make, and it's going to be, they're saying, a spiritual successor to the 765 LT. They keep redefining what the top level of performance looks like on their current Super. And it seems right now, McLaren are still piling a lot of eggs into the basket on the 720S, and for every reason, it has been one of their most, if not their most popular car of the last 20 or so years here. Taking the thunder away from what has been their other road car operations with the 12C, and then later the 570S and 650S. Now, while they still exist in the form of the McLaren Artura, the 720S has still been among their most popular choices. And for every reason, it is an absolute jaw-dropper design. They really hit it out the park there. I would say their prettiest car since the F1. Or the P1, for that matter. Do tend to forget these Super Series cars. The Hyper Series, I think it has now been relabeled as. After the, I think it was the Senna, was when they relabeled it. And we see there, off in the gravel went Matt Crit. So Callum Turner gets the leg back up for position. 3.5 minutes left to go. Now we're going back up ahead here to see the emergence of a fight between John O'Driscoll and Leroy Donald. Now this could be a curious one on the cards indeed. We saw there was recent troubles there for Donald, having fallen in behind both, I think it was both Alexander and at a time there O'Driscoll. You now see the formation of a fight for 4th place here on track between the Silver Division lead and one of the top 5s in Platinum. We can see they're diving all the way to the outside into the gravel. Goes the number 14. Committed way too much there for the run on the outside. You can see he snapped out very, very, very quickly. That's the second time there's been trouble down here under the brakes. Snapped out way too wide. There was just no chance he was going to stay within the white lines there. A little bit of desync as we rejoin there with the 420, but now we find a case there for Kieran Rodd, having got up into the top 5. And it is worth making very clear points here. While we said that Donald's performance was definitely worthy of MVP status, I think we're ignoring an elephant in the room that needs quite the address here, and that is the case for Alexander O'Driscoll and Rodd. They started 18th, 19th, and 20th. They're now 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I think that stands to reason that there is a very sizable driver of the day likelihood between those three. Having a glance in here now, this is quite the reunion. These two shared in one of the greatest division rivalries in the VSR GT3 Championship, of which this series now is a continuation of. Ian Oates versus Lee Evans. They fought in season 11 for the gold division, and it was something of cinema between these two. They reunite here in the closing minutes of round 3. On to lap 52 they go, as getting the switch back out through turn 11 goes Lee Evans on Ian Oates. Ian Oates, as it stands right now, continues to lead the gold division. Will be looking on the cards of a win in category. We do know yellow flags are out for the 77. Ryan Castle in trouble. As right there, that's the 315 getting up and alongside him now. In terms of his distance from the 111, he's still a fair distance off there from Callum Turner. As we do head up in towards the last lap of today, coming up around the corner then for this one here, Faye Galaxy. Right now on the penultimate lap, the race will end on the start of lap 54, as it happens to be the case here. So 53 laps covered coming up on for that of Faye Galaxy. Ian Oates still fights along with Lee Evans, but this is going to be... Oh, as you see there, we were speaking about it for so long. If you clip the inside, it will rocket you out after turn 6. Fortunately, no further damages there for Ian Oates. We see actually stopping very, very late at the braking zone there was Lee Evans, narrowly avoiding going out wide himself. Number 92, I think there, is in trouble. And that's for Matt Crit off of turn 10. As we head up into that final lap we were just informed of there a moment ago, courtesy of the 55 McLaren of Fate Galaxy, looking to go still undefeated in Platinum. This could be quite the delightful sight here for that 55. We'll catch on with him in a few corners time here. Platinums rule in the top 5 then from Galaxy, Anderson, Alexander, O'Driscoll and Rodd. Silver would be the next category in behind them, courtesy of Leroy Donald. Then gold further down the line past Lee Evans in towards Ian Oates' car, the number 6, still leading that division. As going across the line to start their last lap now is Chris Davies, a fair distance from Oates, and will miss out on the chances to retain that lead. Will drop away from it, but only by a handful of points here as they find themselves first and second in division. Rodney O'Driscoll is on the cards here. Keep that worthy in mind. Leroy Donald still holds the silver division lead. Watching on though here with Fate Galaxy as we make our way down through to turn 11. A still glorious performance from the number 55, making his way down towards the line. The checkered flag is out here in Monterey County, California. Fate Galaxy wins in Laguna Seca.
The leader has finished the race.
A brilliant and still undefeated performance from the 55 today. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and it's lonely at the top for this one, where he'd been by himself for the majority of the race. One thing was for certain: you can only rule alone. Fate Galaxy, third win in a row now. Declan Anderson will see second. Alan Alexander will see third. We've seen across the line there, Leroy Donald wins in silver here in round 3 of the championship. A great performance all round from the number 14. Breaks the curse from being stranded away from the rest of his silvers. Across the line to see the gold division win, Ian Oates in the number 6 Ferrari. A brilliant, brilliant performance indeed. And we see for Ryan Castle is only 2 corners away from seeing his first bronze division win of the season. As Alan Alexander, just out in front of him here, is about to see the last of those podium positions. A triumphant performance there, and I'd say very likely to be driver of the day is that 315 of Alexander, by nature of having got more positions over the 420 and the 61, but it would say very close to a shared MVP there. But across the line to the win in bronze is Ryan Castle. Seeing them down to the line, it is going to be very close between these two, but only one can have that 4th place away, and it's going to be John O'Driscoll by 445 thousandths to take 4th. Rod in 5th. Winning, though, is the 55 of Fate Galaxy. We'll see, though, down to the line, the 196 as the last driver to finish in today's event. We'll see 3rd in gold. Mr. Bernie will continue to make his way up through the order here, but it's going to be a slow run for things. Fate Galaxy wins in Laguna Seca and wins in platinum. Your other division winners then for gold is Ian Oates, silver is Leroy Donald, and bronze is Ryan Castle. The full result there: Galaxy in 1st, Anderson 2nd, Alexander 3rd, and O'Driscoll in 4th, Rod in 5th, Donald 6th, Evans 7th, Oates 8th, Davies 9th, and Castle rounds out the top 10. Bernie in 11th, Turner 12th, Palumbo in 13th, Crit 14th, Tishavari 15th, and Dexter rounds out the finishing 16 positions. DNFs then from Gray, McNally, Ogan, and Osborne. So an exciting end to today's event here at Laguna Seca. Our one stop in the United States over the course of the calendar here as we round out of round 3. Our next visit then will bring us back to Europe for 3 more rounds as we head to Spain first off in Barcelona, the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, then to Alton Park in Cheshire, then Silverstone on the county lines between Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire. So 2 stops in the UK coming up, and that'll make 3 events so far to be set in the UK, with the season premiere having happened over in Kent at Brands Hatch on June 24th. Next race then in the championship, July 15th at Barcelona at round 4 of the championship. If you're catching on with us for other spots of action this week, on Saturday we have 2 events coming up from the HCCL Ginetta Summer Challenge at 2 p.m. BST. That's live from Donington Park for its 3rd and penultimate round of the championship. And then later on at 7 o'clock in the evening, we go on to another round of the Continental Racing League live from the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. If you're joining us 6:30 p.m. BST on Sunday this week, we're back in with the NLRL Sunday League Season 6 Round 8 as we get ever closer to the end of the championship over in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. That's all from us here today. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.